begin momentarily. For those of you needing translation devices, please check to my right, the right of the auditorium. You will receive your translation devices. We recognize the arrival of our Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, and Chairman of CARICOM. And thank you for remaining standing. We'll now invite Father Edward Mark to stand by and Ms. Sanika McKee for the national anthem. Father Mark.
Pleasant good morning to all. As we prepare to ask God's blessing upon this conference, I would like us to take a few seconds to reflect on our purpose here, to reflect also on our mission. And we pray that as we work together by God's grace, we'll be able to achieve the goals and objectives of this conference. Let us pray. Gracious and ever-living God, we come before your throne of grace, seeking your mercy, seeking your direction, as we gather in your name with gratitude for bringing us together for the second EU Caribbean Global Gateway Conference on SARGASSUM. We seek your guidance and wisdom as we address the challenges posed by the SARGASSUM in our communities, in our region, and in our world. We thank you, Lord, for the partnerships in this initiative as we strive for continued success and development. Lord, we thank you for the host nation, Grenada, and the opportunity to host this forum. We pray, O God, to grant us insight, cooperation, helping us to forge strong partnerships and innovative solutions. May this conference be a beacon of hope and progress, inspiring actions that protect our environment and uplift God's people. Bless all participants with open hearts and minds, fostering unity and understanding. Let our efforts contribute towards a sustainable and thriving future for us all. In your holy name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen.
Thank you, Father Mark. Please remain standing. I now invite Ms. Sanika McKee to sing the national anthem of Grenada. you, Sanaika, and I'm sure that woke you up. You may be seated. I also want to say thanks to the Nexa New Dimensions. They're the reigning Panorama champions. You may have heard them on the outside. Nexa New Dimensions. Thanks for greeting us this morning with sweet, sweet pan music from Grenada. The Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. Mr. Felix Fernandez Shaw, Director of Latin America, the Caribbean, and overseas countries and territories of the European Union Commission. His Excellency, Dr. Didacus Jules, Director General, OECS Commission. The Honorable Kyrene James, Minister for Climate Resilience, the Environment, and Renewable Energy. Her Excellency, Vasilavska, Head of the European Union and Ambassador to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Ministers of Government of Grenada and visiting ministers, Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams, President of the Senate, Honorable Leo Cato, Speaker of the House of Representatives, members of the Diplomatic Corps, other members of Parliament, Ms. Alison Lett, Secretary to the Cabinet, permanent secretaries and other senior government officials, specially invited guests, students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends, good morning all. Good morning. It is indeed an honor to welcome you to pure Grenada, the spice of the Caribbean. Welcome to the second regional conference on SARGASSUM, Building Sustainable Value Chains in the Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, a trip to Grenada would not be complete without a taste of our culture. I invite you to sit back, relax, be entertained by all creatives. This morning, it is a pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Aquino Romain on spoken word. Aquino.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Somewhere in the blue Caribbean Sea lies a problem. Not a tiny problem. Somewhere in the blue Caribbean Sea lies a significant problem. A significant problem that has developed over time. A significant problem spanning miles and miles and miles of ocean, a problem that is now evident in portions of our beaches. The scent reaches you before you could see. You see somewhere in the blue Caribbean Sea, an island of Sargassum seaweed is currently being carried by the currents, and what used to be an anomaly is now an every year occurrence. It's the reason we are currently here, because we recognize this problem. And like so many problems we face, this is a problem we did not create, and if we did, our contribution was negligible, but we in small island developing states are always eligible to pay in cash, or kind, or peace of mind. So as the Sargassum flows in on the currents, it's just more currency to combat that and other problems occurring in concurrency. The problem, climate change. The culprit, corporations. But I'm a youth man, I like to look for ways to remedy the situation, so let's talk solutions. Solutions, cooperation. Solution, innovation. Solutions are something we are very good at in this region. Making a way. Taking night and making day. Engineering our own fate. Where they see problems, we see profit, and while this Sargassum thing, we wish we could stop it, that is just another way for us to put money in our pockets. Plain talk, bad manners. We're not going to sit and take with it as sheep, because this is not an issue to sleep on. When there is so much at stake, when benefits and impact weigh on a scale, the more we reduce the impact the benefits raise. Literally washing a show every year is a way to potentially change our lives for the better. So the sooner we realize the better part of this problem, then the better for us. The FAO in a document listed many uses for sargassum seaweed. So permit me to list a few. Food supplement, soil amendment, biofuel, gas and air purification, bioremediation, clothing and textiles, cosmetics. I feel like I'm preaching to the converted because we know this. We're not going to sit and act like I am the only one that noticed that just last month at the Caveville UE campus in Barbados, they unveiled to the world the very first vehicle powered by renewable natural gas. Sargassum seaweed forming a major part of the solution. So if we know the problem, and we know the solution, and we know the benefits the solution brings, then we only missing one thing. It starts with a F and ends with a ing. Funding. And I am not an expert or a policymaker. I am just a simple entertainer, but I would hope that this is what these meetings are all about. Finding a way to genuinely help small island developing states out. Because that's what we need, a help out. In the Caribbean, we just call it a pull out, a push, a shove, a boot. And I don't want to make all the efforts previously look minute, but to tell you the truth, it seems as if we have to limbo under red tapes and jump through hoops to access that thing that starts with a F and ends with an ing. But if we know the problem and we recognize that this problem must be dealt with some urgency, then it stands to reason that the process to access the funding should come with some simplicity. Or maybe I just oversimplifying the problems because at the end of the day, I am just a simple entertainer. You are the experts and you are the ones who collate and extrapolate all the data. So maybe you could tell me better. Maybe you could tell me that we are well on our way to achieving our sustainable development goals. Maybe you can tell me sooner rather than later, everything on the policy paper would manifest. Yes, maybe you can tell me that when I'm driving up the East Coast, there's a systematic approach to dealing with the problem. I'm talking equipment, expertise, and ecosystem. Or maybe you could tell me that things coming to come, and the research and the resources are slowly trickling down, and I am just jumping the gun. Maybe you can tell me that the developed world genuinely has our back, and all the energy being expended is not just megawatts of talk. Maybe you can tell me, genuinely, that everything flowing in on the currents could soon be transferred into currency, because that is what we need. Plain talk, bad manners. Thank you.
Indeed, Prime Minister talked about megawatts of talk the other day. And this conference, we want to hear more about the funding. And we don't want to hear about it, we want it. Thank you, Aquino Romain, spoken word artist. Let's give him another round of applause. It gives me great pleasure to invite Spices Dance Company. They're from the parish that never sleeps, St. John's. They're headed by Ms. Suzanne Jones-Benjamin. Let's welcome the Spices Dance Company. Thank you, Spices Dance Company. Thank you. Thank you once again, Spices Dance Company. Let's give them another round of applause, performing one of our traditional dances. I now present to you Mr. Kevin Bullen and Lion Pride Percussions.
Good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. The other day me go a club out of London. Who approached me, this beautiful woman. She said, excuse me, could I ask you a question? I said, sure baby, please prolong. The woman turned, she asked me where me come from. Say me come from down a Spice Island. I could have seen it in her she eyes. She already want this island boy. She hold me hand, she pull me on the dance floor. Hold me tight and she won't let me go. When me try walk, the woman pull me back. And in a me ear she start jack. And she said the rock, she love this my rock. So well I come to the rock. She love this my rock. Give me, oh the rock. She love this my rock. So well I come to the rock. She love this my rock. Long time she want an island boy. She want to play with an island toy. Island life she want to enjoy. Make love under the island sky. So me took the woman back down to Greens. 4 o'clock pull up by Pines and Lean. Drive up Wharf then settle in. Took the woman down to the beach for a swim. Rub her down in some island cream, so she could have a nice island dream. I want big up the Constantine, way up in the Constant Spring the rock. She love this my Sarah, and when I will come to the rock. She love this my Sarah, oh the rock. She love this my Sarah, so when I will come to the rock. She love this my Sarah. As the woman opened up she eyes, she turned and asked me, is this paradise? I said, baby, have you just realized? You should tell from the stars in the sky. It's the way all the fish them swim, and know all the birds them sing. Could you smell the spice in the wind? Baby, welcome to the breeze. She wanna go up among St. Catherine. She wanna learn about the Grenadian doctrine. She wanna bathe in Anna Del Falls. She wanna buy a rosy by Paula. She want to line on the gun battle block and have an evening island talk. She want a selfie sandwich by Kobe. She wanna go QS in a party. Yes, she wanna go up a Fish Friday. Welcome to the Greens, this is my way. You better listen where we say, listen where we say. Oh, the rock, she love this spice I rock. So when I will come to the rock. She love this spice I rock. Oh, the rock. She love this spice I rock. So when I will come to the rock. She love this spice I rock.
Indeed, welcome to the Rock, the Spice Isle Rock. Let's give it up one more time for Mr. Kevin Bullin and the Lion Pride Percussion. That song was written by our very own Mr. Killer, Mr. Hollis Mapp, international soca star. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Kireen James, Minister for Climate Resilience, the Environment, and Renewable Energy. She is committed to advancing sustainable development and environmental policy in Grenada, and as the youngest elected parliamentarian, she champions transformative governance and the empowerment of youth and women in public service. Let's welcome the Honorable Kireen James.
Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Director for Latin America, the Caribbean, and Overseas Countries and Territories Relation for the European Union Commission, Mr. Felix Fernandez Shaw, Director General of the OECS Commission, His Excellency Dr. Didicus Jules, Head of the European Union Mission Delegation to Barbados, the Eastern Caribbean States, OECS at CARICOM or CARIFORUM, Her Excellency Garcia, Ambassador Garcia, Ministers of Government of Grenada and visiting ministers, ambassadors and special envoys, President of the Senate of Grenada, Dr. Decima Williams, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Leo Cato, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Secretary to the Cabinet, permanent secretaries and other senior government officials, specially invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are standing at the crossroads of a climate crisis. In just over a decade, the Caribbean has faced a relentless adversary, SARGASSUM, wreaking havoc on our economies, environment, and our way of life. This floating algae, which once played a vital role in the open ocean ecosystem, has turned into a destructive force upon reaching our shores. It is smothering our coral reefs, threatening our fisheries, and driving away the lifeblood of our economies, our tourism. But beyond these tangible impacts, it carries with it a warning. Our planet is in peril, and so are we. For Grenada, as for many Caribbean nations, this is not just an environmental issue. It is an economic and social crisis. Every year, millions of dollars are spent or are lost to the cleanup of SARGASSUM. Fishing communities watch as their livelihoods are disrupted, while the tourism sector struggles with declining visitor numbers and tarnished beaches. The human cost is real. Families face public health concerns as the decaying SARGASSUM emits harmful gases that jeopardize the well-being of coastal communities. This is a crisis on multiple fronts, and the time for action is now. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we gather not to dwell in despair, but to rise to the occasion. We must turn this tide, transforming SARGASSUM from a threat into a resource, from an environmental hazard into an economic opportunity. We are not powerless. The solutions are within our reach, and together, through innovation, collaboration, and political will, we can chart a path forward. This conference is more than just a meeting of minds. It is a platform for action. We are fortunate to have partners like the European Union, the OECS Commission, and other global actors committed to finding sustainable solutions. Through their support and collaboration, we can pioneer innovative uses for SARGASSUM, whether as biofuels, bioplastics, fertilizers, or even pharmaceuticals. The potential is vast, and we must seize it. Let me be clear, ladies and gentlemen. The window for action is closing. I'll reiterate that. The window for action is closing. As small island developing states, the SARGASSUM influxes of the climate, as small island developing states, we are on the front lines of the climate crisis. The SARGASSUM influxes we see today are just one manifestation of a larger, more dangerous trend. The warming of our oceans, rising sea levels, pollution, eutrophication, and shifting ecosystems. We cannot afford to wait for the next crisis to hit us, ladies and gentlemen. Our survival depends on what we do and what we do now. Today, we are challenged to think beyond temporary fixes. We must embrace long-term, scalable solutions that address the root causes of this crisis. This requires not just technical experts, but also the political courage to make bold decisions that prioritize sustainability in our policies. And if I am to land on the spoken word this morning, we also need the start with a F and end with a N is what? Funding. In Grenada, we have already begun to lead by example. We have stabilized vulnerable coastal areas, implementing climate-smart fishing facilities, and empowered our local communities to take action. But we are just getting started. Our partnerships with institutions like UE and local organizations like SPECTO are setting the foundation for long-term sustainable management of SARGASSUM. We are leveraging data, monitoring, and innovative technologies such as drones for SARGASSUM tracking to ensure we remain ahead of the curve. But make no mistake, we cannot do this alone. We need the global community. We need you. Today, we call upon all stakeholders, governments, businesses, scientists, and civil society to join us in this fight. This is a shared challenge, and it will require a collective effort to turn the tide. The theme of this conference, Turning the Tide, Sustainable Practices and Economic Opportunities for SARGASSUM in the Caribbean Basin, perfectly captures our mission. We are here to forge the partnerships that will unlock SARGASSUM's potential. The European Union has already demonstrated its commitment to sustainable investment in the Caribbean through the Global Gateway Initiative, and we thank you for that. This collaboration exemplifies how international partnerships can catalyze change, driving research, innovation, and economic growth. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we must double down on these efforts. We must explore every opportunity, from developing public-private partnerships to fostering investments in new technologies that can valorize SARGASSUM at scale. This is not just about solving a local problem. This is about creating a model for sustainable, resilient economies in the face of climate change. As we convene here today, ladies and gentlemen, we must recognize how deeply our efforts align with our sustainable development goals. This conference is about SDG 13, or climate action, because addressing the SARGASSUM crisis is part of our broader battle against climate change. It is also about SDG 14, life below water, as we seek to protect our oceans and marine ecosystems. And it is about SDG 17. Anybody can tell me what's SDG 17? Partnership for the goals. Because none of this would be possible without strong collaborative relationships we build here. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the future is ours to shape. We stand at a defining moment, not just for Grenada, not just for the Caribbean, but for the world. Our choices today will determine the fate of our economies, our ecosystems, and communities. Our choices today, ladies and gentlemen, will determine the fate of our economies, our ecosystems, and our communities. So I urge you, or might I dare say I urge us, include myself in the fraction, to be bold, to think creatively, and to commit fully to the task ahead. Let us seize this moment and ensure that when we look back, we will see this conference as the turning point in our collective fight against sargassum and more broadly the climate crisis. On behalf of the Prime Minister and the government of Grenada, I welcome you to 2 days of transformative dialogue. Let us work together to turn the tide, not just for sargassum, but for the future of our blue planet. Thank you and welcome to Pure Grenada, the spice of the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister James, Minister for Climate Resilience, the Environment, and Renewable Energy. I now invite to the podium Her Excellency Ambassador Lavska, Head of the European Union and Ambassador to Barbados, the Eastern and the Eastern Caribbean.
Thank you so much. Honorable Prime Minister Mitchell-Dicon, if I may ask your permission to spare everybody else having to go through pronunciation of my name, if I can acknowledge you, Honorable Minister James, Director General of OECS, all the other ministers, excellencies, distinguished delegates, all protocols observed, a very good morning. I hope that's okay. You have no idea what a pleasure it is for me as European Union ambassador based in Barbados and covering all of the Eastern Caribbean to be here to open this conference. It has taken months of very hard work, and the fact that between Minister James' team and Dr. Didake's team, we're still talking to each other, I think it's a sign of our passion and commitment. It's taken a lot of very hard work, but it's so exciting to see so many of you here. I know we have other people in the spill-out room, and we have many more online listening to this conference. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for your time, and please make the most of it. I would particularly like to thank Prime Minister Mitchell and the government of Grenada for agreeing to go ahead with hosting this conference at a time when you're still dealing with the response and reconstruction after the devastating impact of Hurricane Beryl. Our team took the time to go to Carriacou and Petite Martinique. We saw for ourselves what you're struggling with. We're extremely impressed with how you're handling it. And we have been thinking creatively what we can do beyond the first response and how we can help you with the reconstructions, but warmest congratulations on how you're handling this. We are here, though, not only with the Caribbean countries. This is about the Caribbean basin. We've got Mexico, we've got Central America. On our part, we're a strong team from EU, from headquarters, from my team in Barbados, but also from other delegations in the region. And we have many EU member states present here. And as EU family, we are absolutely committed to making this conference not another talk shop, but that we come out with commitment and clear understanding what we're going to do when we leave here. So it's fantastic to be here in such a large group. But the success of this conference is going to depend on what all of you and all of us will make of it. I was really excited to see the buzz in the corridor before we entered the room, but also inside the room. People are very keen to talk to each other, see what is out there, who can offer what, and we have 2 days to do that. So please make the most of it. The momentum is definitely there. And somebody said to me, thank you for organizing this conference in such a wonderful location. We've all seen the beautiful beach and the wonderful clear waters. Imagine that beach covered with brownish, smelly, stinky seaweed that will not allow you to walk on that beach or swim on that beach, and that affects local community. We mustn't allow that to happen. In preparing for this conference, we were actually amazed ourselves to find out how much is going and how much is being done in various parts of the world. That is why this conference is bringing academia, and I'm very happy to have principal of UWI Cave Hill campus from Barbados here. Thank you for coming. But also researchers in various other parts of the world, in Mexico, in Dominican Republic, in our countries, research that we didn't know about. So please talk to each other. We are keen to help you work better together so that we can have even better results. But the research is out there. We just need to make sure that we find ways of using that research in order to address the problem. But there are also a lot of smaller, some bigger, but most very small initiatives that are already producing various products from Sargassum. Please take time to understand what they are. There'll be different sessions, but there are displays outside. We are here, yes, to look at funding, and that is why European Investment Bank as well as other international financial institutions are here. The funding can be available, but we need to be creative, and I will quote different words of the artist from this morning: solutions through innovations and solutions through cooperation. So we're here to, as you say in the region, big them up, but we need to find a creative way of transforming the problem into economic benefit that will free up tourism, that will create jobs, and that will basically earn money both for the region as well as for the investors. And the time is now. And let me stress as the last thing, this is not about us from Europe. We are here in strong numbers because we are committed, but we're happy to work with any other partners. That is why this conference is trying to bring all that we found out there on Sargassum together so that we can work more effectively. So Team Europe, Global Gateway, my director I'm sure will talk about more, but we're here to find solutions. So we need to act now to protect the beautiful beach and other beaches and the livelihoods of the people in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. At this time, I'd like to invite His Excellency, Dr. Didacus Jules, who is the Director General of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. Since 2014, spearheading regional integration among 11 member states, and with a strong background in education, he served with distinction as the CEO of the Caribbean Examinations Council and has contributed globally to educational policy and public sector transformation. Dr. Jules has served on a board as a board director for Latin America and the Caribbean on the Global Partnership for Education and is a current member of the UNESCO board. Let's welcome His Excellency, Dr. Didacus Jules.
Thank you very much. Adopting the protocol already established, but recognizing Prime Minister, Minister James, Felix, and esteemed colleagues, I could simply have come here today and echoed what Aquino said. Mic drop, he said everything that needs to be said. But there's one thing that he missed about today. As we know, there's a word that starts with F and ends in ing, and we're not here for this. And that word is fooling, because there have been too many conferences, too much talk about all of these things, and we've been fooling about it. Now is the time for action. As a Grenadian say, I think you all had something else in mind, or you too bad mind. As a co-convener of this pivotal second EU Caribbean Global Gateway Conference on SARGASSUM, together with the governments of Grenada and the European Union, the OECS Commission welcomes everyone warmly to this gathering, where we are united not just by the challenges that we face, but by the opportunities we are about to explore together. We are here because SARGASSUM, as we know, a problem that has beset our shores for over a decade, demands our collective action. It threatens our coastal communities, undermines public health, and places enormous pressure on our government's resources. Yet it is also more than a threat. It is a call to action, an opportunity to shift from crisis management to innovation, sustainability, and economic transformation. It is an opportunity that will impact every country in the Caribbean basin, and that is why we must act decisively. SARGASSUM, as you know, is not just a natural phenomenon, but a recurring one, exacerbated by global environmental shifts. We have seen it affecting our fishing industries, disrupt tourism, and stretch our public services thin as we work to clean up our beaches. The sheer scale of the problem, hundreds of thousands of tons of seaweed washing ashore annually, is staggering. But today we resolve to see it differently. What if, as has been said, we can turn the tide on SARGASSUM and convert it into an asset? This is not a far-off dream. It is within our grasp. In fact, some of our member states, partners, and innovators have already been exploring how to transform SARGASSUM into products that can generate revenue and create jobs. These initiatives point to the way forward, but we must accelerate and expand these efforts. Our task here today is to ensure that we move beyond isolated projects and develop a coordinated, scalable, and sustainable response. Our challenge is to transform the narrative of SARGASSUM from one of burden to one of opportunity. And this transformation requires a bold three-pronged approach. First, we must invest in research and development. And while the economic potential of SARGASSUM is real, there is still much that we need to understand about how to harness it safely and effectively. From its variable chemical composition to its heavy metal content, we need to ensure that SARGASSUM can be valorized in a way that protects both the environment and human health. Research institutions, both within our region and beyond, are already exploring the potential of SARGASSUM as a resource for biofuels, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, and even building materials. But more investment is needed to bring these solutions to scale. This conference will help us to connect those dots between innovators and investors, and I urge us to commit to expanding these networks. Secondly, we need an enabling policy environment. Our governments have already made strides in developing national strategies to address SARGASSUM, but we must now take this further together. We therefore need regional policies that support the establishment of a sustainable SARGASSUM industry. This means creating frameworks that encourage public-private partnerships, incentivize investment in processing technologies, and streamline the regulatory requirements for SARGASSUM-based products. Our region can and should become a global leader in SARGASSUM, but we will only achieve this by aligning our policies with our ambitions. Thirdly, we must foster regional cooperation. SARGASSUM knows no boundaries, and neither should our response. It was the American poet Robert Frost who asserted in his poem, Mending Fences, and I quote, that good neighbors make good fences. But the Caribbean Sea that we share has no fences, and nature makes a fiction of our maritime boundaries. The influxes we face require not only national efforts, but a coordinated regional strategy. We need to work together on forecasting, collection, storage, and processing. This is not just a matter of efficiency, it is also a matter of fairness. In our case, strong cooperation makes good neighbors. Some countries are more severely impacted than others, and the burden of dealing with SARGASSUM should not fall disproportionately on any one state. By sharing resources, knowledge, and technology, we can ensure that all countries in the Caribbean basin are equipped to handle the challenge. In this regard, the European Union's Global Gateway Initiative is a crucial partner. The EU has demonstrated a deep commitment to supporting our region, not just through funding, but through collaboration and shared learning. This conference is a testament to this, and it is my hope that we will leave here with even stronger ties between the Caribbean and the EU in our joint efforts to tackle this issue. But make no mistake, this is not just a matter of governments and institutions. The private sector has a key role to play. Many of you in the room represent industries that are already experimenting with innovative uses for SARGASSUM, from cosmetics to pharmaceuticals to energy production and agriculture. Your creativity, your risk-taking, and your investment are what will ultimately drive the success of this endeavor. I urge you to see yourselves as part of a larger ecosystem, one where your success contributes not only to your own bottom line, but to the resilience and sustainability of our entire region. We are also mindful of the communities that bear the brunt of SARGASSUM influxes. Fishermen, coastal businesses, local residents have all been impacted. As we develop solutions, we must ensure that they are inclusive, taking into account the needs and the voices of those most affected. This is not just about creating high-tech solutions in labs. It is about building resilient communities and economies from the ground up. The time for action is now. Over the next 2 days, we will explore a range of solutions, from policy frameworks and investment strategies to scientific innovations and business models. We will hear from experts, government leaders, industry pioneers who are already making strides in this field. But the real success of this conference will be measured not by the conversations we have, but by the actions we take when we leave this room. So, as we begin this important dialogue, I challenge each of us to focus on action. We must leave here not just with ideas and discussions, but with concrete plans and commitments. Let us commit to building partnerships that can bring together government, industry, academia, and local communities. Let us commit to finding solutions that are innovative, scalable, and sustainable. And let us commit to acting now, because the future of our region depends on it. In closing, I want to express my gratitude, my deep gratitude to our partners in this effort, the European Union, the government of Grenada, and all the stakeholders who have come together to make this conference a reality. The collaborative spirit we foster here today will be key to our success. We are not facing this challenge alone. We are united in our purpose, and together we can turn, as we heard, the tide on SARGASSUM, transforming it into a driver of economic growth and environmental sustainability for the Caribbean. Thank you, and let's get to work.
Thank you, Dr. Jules. My takeaway is from burden to opportunity. And indeed, SARGASSUM is everybody's business, so let's come together to find solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite at this time a Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Grenada's 9th Prime Minister. He's dedicated to driving national development through inclusive governance and strategic reforms. A seasoned lawyer and advocate for community advancement, he is focused on building a prosperous Grenada that celebrates its culture and provides equal opportunities for all. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Grenada and Chairman of CARICOM, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell.
Thank you. Good morning. Please have your seats. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And permit me to adopt the extended and extensive protocol list. But I do want to recognize, I will call them the joint heads of the European Union grouping, if I may put it so, Felix and Garcia, and I mean no disrespect by addressing them by their first names, but merely to indicate the familiarity that has taken place over the course of the last several months in trying to make sure that this event occurs. I want to recognize Dr. Jules, our OECS partner in this endeavor as well. I am also particularly happy to welcome to Grenada our colleague ministers, heads of delegations from other Caribbean Basin countries, and I want to emphasize Caribbean Basin here, stretching from Central America all the way to South America. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, I'm particularly heartened to see you with us this morning. And I'm very happy to see a room that is filled to capacity. So it means to the joint teams of the OECS, Minister James and her team, the European Union, it says to me that we are already making a success of this by being able to bring together this significant grouping of persons this morning here in Grenada. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you for supporting Grenada. Thank you for supporting resilience, because as Garcia said, it would have been perhaps easier to say that because we've had to deal with the twin climatic events of a severe drought in the first 6 months of the year, and then the double blow of a Category 4 hurricane right at the beginning of the traditional hurricane or rainy season, that we ought not to host this event. But I think we are prepared to demonstrate that no matter how many times you get hit by climatic events, we are going to get up, we are going to dust ourselves off, and we are going to continue to move forward. So thank you for supporting Grenada. Thank you for supporting small island developing states. This idea to host this conference bloomed out of the SIDS conference in Antigua. And I'm happy that we have been able to pull it off in relatively a short period of time, despite the intervening challenges that occurred. I said at the UN on Saturday morning, and I'm going to quote myself, that we are, and for that purpose, I will extend it to beyond Grenada, the Caribbean Basin. We are a living lab on the front lines of a global challenge. And I said, let us help you. Notice I didn't say, help us. I said, let us help you. And so this gathering this morning is our attempt to help you address the SARGASSUM challenge. We believe that we have a unique opportunity in Grenada and in the Caribbean Basin to turn the tide on what is viewed as a problem into a solution, and into a solution that can have ripple effects to all of the stakeholders that it has thus far negatively impacted. And I'm going to continue quoting myself. To paraphrase a famous tourism slogan, what happens in Grenada does not just stay in Grenada. The lessons we are learning can help nations facing their own climate crises, from wildfires in Canada to flooding in Europe. But it would be remiss of me not to express empathy with our brothers and sisters in the United States, and in particular in the Carolinas, who are witnessing firsthand the devastation of the type of hurricanes we know all too well. And so it shows you that size does not matter, that wealth and resources does not matter if your people are not prepared for what we have put on steroids. It is our actions that have led to hurricanes that are on steroids. It is our actions that have led to the blooming of sargassum that are on steroids. And so it is our collective actions that will in fact change the course and turn the tide on this. And so I think this is a unique opportunity for us to show that through partnership, we can find the solutions that can be sustainable and that can lead to changing problems into solutions. And as Garcia said, you can try and imagine Grandlands Beach with sargassum, but you don't have to try and imagine it. If you go up the east coast of Grenada, almost 70% of the east coast is blanketed with sargassum, both on land and in the ocean. And in some instances, the sargassum are walls of sargassum. I'm not a big man, but sometimes the walls are tall enough that you can stand on the walls and you would not sink. And there's a photo of me standing on a wall of sargassum that is strong enough to at least take my weight, and I suspect perhaps the weight of several other persons here in the room. Now, you may see this as a problem, or you may see it as a solution. So it clearly tells me that sargassum has properties that, even when dried, perhaps could be used in construction, perhaps could be used in sea defenses. I'm not the scientist, I'm not the researcher, but the point is, perspective matters. And so it's important for us to make sure that our perspective is that we will find the solutions and find the uses to make sure that when we come out of this two-day conference, we are coming out with very concrete solutions and action points that we can share with the world and with the region. And so I want to emphasize this. This is a regional challenge, and we must pursue a regional approach to it. We may all get there at different points in that march, but it is absolutely important that we come out of this two-day conference with a regional consensus as to the approaches that we will take to treat with this challenge and this opportunity. So for those of you who are visiting Grenada for the first time, in case you missed it through the melodic voice and drums, welcome to the Spice Rock. We are known as the Spice Isle, or the Isle of Spice, and perhaps for the younger generation, the Spice Rock, as immortalized in the song you heard this morning. We think this is an idyllic setting for your creativity, your innovation to go to work. If you need a 5-minute break, we obviously will encourage you to walk the lovely Grandlands Beach, take a swim if you have to, rejuvenate, and come back with better ideas. If we are disagreeing in a discussion, I invite you to do the same, and you will quickly find that you will all agree that Grandlands Beach is the best beach in the Western Hemisphere. So this conference is bringing together some of the brightest minds on this subject. Experts, scholars, practitioners from diverse backgrounds from just about 30 different countries, both in-person and virtual participants. And our collective diversity is going to be key to challenging conventional wisdoms and generating bold new ideas. And I want to emphasize that we are not here to maintain the status quo. So we should not be afraid to be disruptive. We should not be afraid to be innovative in championing some of the solutions that we may think is appropriate for addressing this issue. We expect, not that we hope, we expect that this conference will create sustained partnerships that will allow participants to share resources, knowledge, and best practices to foster a stronger and more collaborative future. We must allow the science to inform the policy. I want to repeat that. We must allow the science to inform the policy. And I'm sure we will have some scientific consensus that sargassum will remain a significant opportunity in our coastal ecosystems due to environmental changes for a sustained and foreseeable future. The causes are complex, and we are not here to complain. So I will not lament. I will accept that objectively we have the SARGASSUM, it will keep coming, and therefore it presents us with an opportunity. So I expect that everyone here has something to contribute. Hence the whole of society approach to tackling this issue. I believe we have students who should be here. If they're not here, we expect them throughout the day, and therefore we want to emphasize that we should not discount the value of youthful input into this exercise. We should not be afraid to be frank, open, and transparent in our discourse with each other. This is the second time this conference is happening. So it is a wonderful opportunity for us to relook, rethink, regather our thoughts, and be very clear with each other. The clearer we are, the better the communication, the more likely we are to reach consensus on any given issue. We expect that strong partnerships that are already in place will continue to grow and blossom, and will outblossom the SARGASSUM blooms. And when we all return to our respective familiar places that we call home, our roles as ambassadors in continuing to champion, speak about, and foster the partnership would be even more critical. That's the only way we are going to avoid the trap of another conference that had megawatts of. So, I want to re-emphasize that when we return home, our roles as ambassadors is going to be critical in ensuring the success of the decisions that we are going to take at this conference. The spoken word artist spoke of funding, so I will not attempt to do injustice to his melodic and rhythmical way of addressing the issue. But I think we all know, and we have the partners who are here, that funding is critical, and we therefore expect that our discussions will obviously focus on this issue. It is clear from just taking a cursory look at the booths outside of this door that there are significant opportunities already for exploiting this resource. What we need to ensure is that we can scale this up, we can fund it, and we can make it sustainable. And importantly, we can empower the communities that have been negatively impacted by this. It is critical because there are lots of communities who've suffered as a result of our inability thus far to treat with this issue. And so it's important that when we think of the solutions, that we think of solutions along the value chain that empowers the communities that have been impacted by it, and that allows these communities to in fact share experience, share expertise, and share their knowledge in treating with this issue. Market potential and governance. Naturally, if we are going to take a regional approach, there will be points of friction. There will be difference of perspectives, there will be laws, rules, regulations that we are going to have to address. We are dealing with the sea, and the sea, just like land, has boundaries, has limits, has jurisdictional issues. But again, I would urge us, and particularly for the policymakers who are in the room and who have the ability to treat with those issues, that the SARGASSUM doesn't respect any jurisdiction. It does not respect any boundary delimitation. It doesn't miraculously say, I'm going to spare Grenada and I'm going to go to Venezuela. Or I'm going to spare St. Lucia and I'm going to go to Dominica. And so we would urge that we not use conventional borders and barriers to prevent us from finding global or regional solutions to the challenges that we face. So I will conclude by re-emphasizing that innovative applications to this resource, and perhaps the more we call it a resource, the more it will begin to change our mindset that it is a problem, would be key in ensuring that the promise of opportunity turns into economic development. And that in the wider context of the use of the blue economy, for the Caribbean Basin, where the vast majority of the states are big ocean states, holds the promise of a brighter and more sustained future if we work together, if we encourage our sharing, if we encourage our partnership. And I see this conference as a perfect example of that experiment within the Caribbean Basin. Thank you very much. I wish all of us a successful two-day conference, and I look forward to our positive outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We look forward to a very productive 2 days as well. And there were a lot of F words going around, funding. Yeah, that's going to stick with you for the next year, funding, the F word. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the point where we invite our featured speaker. He is Mr. Felix Fernandez Shaw, the Director for Latin America, the Caribbean, and relations with overseas countries and territories at the European Commission, where he guides sustainable development and international partnerships. With extensive experience in European Union external action, he previously led sustainable development policy and served as head of development cooperation at the European External Action Service. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you on the theme Global Gateway Regional Response to Sargassum, Building a Sustainable Sargassum Value Chain in the Caribbean, let's welcome Mr. Felix Fernandez Shaw.
Good morning, Prime Minister, Minister, Wasilewska. Her name is Wasilewska. But if you pronounce it the Polish way, the L is not an L. She will tell you about it later. Didacus, good morning. Prime Minister, I know there's plenty of people, particularly students. These are the important people. And I wanted to, all protocol observed, to start thanking you for the leadership that you've exercised in bringing us all together here today. I have a little PowerPoint presentation on what we want to do, what we have agreed. I guess this is what I should be using. Oh. Help? Yes? All right, very good. No? More help? What was that? There's a word with an F and ends with... No. Someone help me? I guess this is what it's all about. No? All right, so I'll have to improvise, right? I'm not sure I can do that as well as you did. But thanks a lot for the leadership. When we, Didacus and I, came and we met you in Antigua and Barbuda, we were really looking for this kind of leadership that you also sustained, even if when you said, I think you said a challenge came around in the middle.
No? I'll just start looking for you.
Very good. Okay, so you said, Prime Minister, that there was a slight challenge between Antigua and now, and it takes a lot of courage to say that Category 4 was a slight challenge. So thanks a lot for that. The reason why we're here today, I think you introduced it very well, is to try and generate one conversation. When we started talking about Sargassum some years ago, we started talking a lot, as we usually do, but Caribbean region, specifically the Caribbean chair of CELAC, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Prime Minister Gonsalves brought it to our attention in Europe, to the summit, and said, we need your support. We need the European Union to support us. We've got Sargassum, and we cannot cope with it. We need your support. We started looking at things here, and what we saw was that there were too many conversations. There were too many people talking about Sargassum. There was, believe it or not, too much F and ing. There you go. But many of the people that are here today will tell you that they all have lots of programs, lots of that, but nobody is making a decisive pitch. And the reason for that is because we're not bringing everyone together. So I think it's rather remarkable that we are filled room here in Grenada with people that can speak about everything that is related to Sargassum. This was the first objective. Didacus, Prime Minister, I think we managed, so I think we got that one. Now, the challenge is going to be to keep us together and to go. Can we start the PowerPoint? There you go. So that's the CELAC summit in Brussels, where Prime Minister Gonsalves said, we need your help. Next slide. So, there you go. So, if we're all here together from all the walks of life, what you see there is the 4 elements that we want to do and that we want to bring together. If we can focus all our attention into developing a Sargassum value chain, 1, 3, 5, or 25 Sargassum value chains, this will support the region in doing all those things. It's about collection and storage. It's about generating technology transfers. Many of the people that are here have been investigating, researching, some of them in Europe. We do have seaweed floating around in European seas, plenty of it. And everybody's doing the same thing as we try to do here. You have to pick it up before it comes to the shores, and you have to do something with it, because if you dump it, yeah, Europe is large land mass, but still, if you dump it, that's the wrong idea. So we have to create jobs and growth out of it. We have to bring social benefits to the population, and we have to promote a circular economy. You cannot just dump it, it will come back. So the idea is that we all focus, that's the proposal from the European Union and from the member states and from the Prime Minister and from the regions, we focus into stop treating Sargassum as a threat and putting it as an opportunity. As I said yesterday, the main issue here, the question that I would like everyone to look at is, do you have Sargassum to sell? And the answer is no. So before we can make a business case, we need to have Sargassum to sell. And selling does not mean extracting, does not mean exporting. It means building a value chain here in the Caribbean. I said yesterday, the Prime Minister, it's easier for a Prime Minister to quote himself than it is for a director. But I said to the radio, you know how to do this with rum. You have sugarcane, you have the technology. I'm told the Grenadian rum is the best in the world. But we already had a discussion yesterday between the EIB and the Commission on whether Italian wine or Spanish wine. Fortunately, there were no French on the table. Yeah, so you know how to do it. This is building a value chain. So the thing is, if we are able to put a price to the ton of Sargassum, we will be able to support fishing communities, technology transfers, public efforts, early detection. We can work through the whole thing. And this is where we want to see the Global Gateway. Next slide. We want to see things working for the benefit of public policy objectives. Next slide, please. And there you go. So that's the Sargassum value chain. The Greater Caribbean region, you see collection, treatment, handling, transformation, and commercialization. Anybody that has something to produce, including rum, except for the offshore collection so far. But you will see this happening. So this is where we need to act. And this is where we've brought all of you together to try and see if you can all focus on building a value chain. Next slide. So there you go. Now I've put it differently so that you'd all think that we have a great team of consultants and experts. No, this is my team. It's still a great team. But that's where we have this idea for you here today to start working on it. Next slide. So this is the objective of the conference. You're all here. Not everybody that knows and deals with Sargassum is here, but everybody who's here have told us we are interested. We have money. We have ideas. We have a value chain. We have industry. We've done the research. Please, no more studies. We don't need studies. We need to move. But the idea for this conference today and tomorrow, where the Prime Minister wants to see that something happened, is that you all focus on using your part of the value chain to act as a whole, whether you are the government, whether you are the private sector, you're the research institute, a partner for the region, a financier, public or private. And I think since I've been thinking strongly for the past half hour how to find a clever word that starts with an F and ends with ing, you have the word there, facilitating. There you go. So, yeah, I could have gone comedian, but, you know, I had to pay my bills. So, next slide. So please focus on creating a value chain. There can be many. You can see all the private sector companies that are here with us. We have barely started kicking the rock around in Europe. I'm sure there are more. I'm told that internally Europe is doing a lot of work on seaweed. Some of the people here that are here today benefit from internal European funding for their research and their value chain building. But there are also lots of people in the Caribbean, not only in the Caribbean countries, in the wider Caribbean, people that are here that already have solutions, that are working for startup and scale up. Next slide. And more actors in the value chain. So you have the European Union, you have all the public-private banks, the European Investment Bank here today with a strong delegation, public, private, cooperation agencies, universities. So next slide. So this is where we are. So this is what we're working for. We need those 4 strands to work as one. As the Prime Minister put it, it's not a sequential work that we're asking you to do, it's a parallel work. Everybody needs to start working. We need to be practical. We have necessary regional conventions we need to work on and regional agreements, but we also need to have capacities, we need to have technology transfers. These are the kinds of things that nobody speaks about, or everybody speaks about, but nobody delivers on. Next slide. So there you go. Research and innovation, we've listed them all. I think you probably better know this better than I do. Next slide. industrial investment and technology, collection, pretreatment, all these elements, building materials, cosmetics. I think most of you identify with one or the other. It doesn't matter. What you want is to make a business case out of the Sargassum. How do we do that? How do we build that? Next slide. Starts with an F, ends with an ing, and it's not funding. So this is what we know is going on. You will probably, all of us, all of you, find yourselves along that line. But we are doing pieces here and pieces there. We are not focusing. It's everyone's fault. The international partners, the government, the private sector, research institute, everybody wants to grab a piece of the cake, and that's what's happening. Next slide. Right. This is where some of us excel at. Talking. Very good. It doesn't start with an F though, but it could. So this is the kind of thing that we're all very good at, and that's why. Okay, I think this is my last slide. Let me play with it. All right. So, financing, this is the kind of thing that we need. We need to do this with whomever wants to partner or lead on these efforts. Technical assistance, local communities, social infrastructure, capacity building, startups, corporate project finance, sovereign, sub-sovereign financing, de-risking guarantees. We need to find the technologies that adapt, and we need to quickly start moving. There you go. I'm gonna get the hang of it. And, right. So this is it. It's not very difficult. It's complex, but not difficult. And again, I wanted to ask you to think in terms of none of this happens if you don't have Sargassum to sell. And Sargassum to sell looks like a very functional private sector enrichment kind of thing. Yeah, that's what it looks like. But it's much more than that. It's much more than that. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for investment, it's an opportunity for technology transfer, it's an opportunity for research, it's an opportunity for social benefits, jobs, training, and that's where I think we all need to come together. So please, when you work these 2 days, I want you to focus on what is the part of your value chain that you can support us in. What is your contribution? Where can you act decisively? Where can you propose us ideas so that we can start building the 4? I'm going to play with this now. There you go. No, I got it wrong. So forget it. So where can we get together, and where can you support us? And support the Prime Minister, and Grenada, and support St. Vincent, and support Barbados, and St. Lucia, and the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, and Mexico, and Belize, and so on and so forth. But also, you need to support Guadeloupe and Martinique, other islands which are also here, because they also have that problem. So please focus on building a value chain. The European Union, through the Global Gateway, all our member states, our financing institutions, we will walk along you. We are ready to put the funding to facilitate, no, it's okay, I'll stop there with the F word. But please count on us, because we really wanted to bring you here to make sure that we start this conversation. If we are successful, we will have another one. on which I would like to see more governments coming forward saying, this is my plan. This is where I want to put the angle. This is how I want to collect sargassum. This is how I want to store it. These are the ideas I have, but I need the private sector to help me, and I need the public banks and the private banks to support me. We need to be operational. So thanks a lot. And again, Prime Minister, Didacus, Minister Gosia, Wasilewska. Did I get it right this time? End of the talk now. It's very nice to speak after Gosia, because when I was a kid, no one understood my last name. And this is the only place where everybody says Shaw, right? So thanks a lot.
That last comment might have been for me. Thank you, Mr. Felix Fernandez Shaw. I'm happy you got a chance to play with the clicker. And on that note, we will come together for a coffee break and a photo opportunity. So we'll take a break at this time. I'd like to invite heads of delegation to meet us on the outside for a family photo, and then we'll get back after a 15-minute coffee break to our next session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The students in the room, you can remain with us for our next sessions if your timetable will allow it. The protocol officers in gray will assist us in getting everybody outside for the photo opportunity. Thank you. At this time, I just want to thank all of you for joining us. This morning, we had over 400 participants online, so we thank you for joining us today, and thank you, those of you invited guests. Thank you so much for joining us. This section of our conference is for registered. So again, I'd like to thank all of our invited guests for joining us this morning. Feel free to join us online for as the conversation continues on Sargassum. So thank you so much, and we will begin our first panel discussion, setting the scene. Where are we now? So we are going to try to make up as much time as possible. I will entertain 2 questions from our audience this morning, but the bulk of the questions will go to our panelists. We have 2 panelists with us online, so we await for some connectivity with that, or maybe they're already connected, so we await that as well. So this section is called Setting the Scene. Where are we now? And we await participants. Please take your seats, and we will begin shortly. So in this session, we will unpack the current status and future direction of Sargassum valorization. The aim is to assess the present state of research, the enabling environment, and the development of value chains. Drawing from insights from recent conferences in Dominican Republic and Mexico, this conversation will provide a comprehensive overview of where we stand in addressing Sargassum-related issues and the most promising opportunities. And our speaker, Dr. Jules, mentioned using our burden as an opportunity. And of course, we will definitely explore some of the opportunities that the Sargassum has posed, or created for us, rather. All right, so this time I want to welcome Dr. Brigitte van Tuxenbroek. I think they gave me all the hardest names to pronounce this morning. right? She is a senior researcher at the Universidad Nacional de Mexico. And of course, we also have with us Mr. Ignacio Munoz, right? He is the CEO of The Seas We Love, and I like that, The Seas We Love. You're right across from me, Grand Anse Beach, and as Prime Minister said, I hope you get a chance to take a dip and relax, right? Because it's going to be a long day, and we expect some results, and we want you to be relaxed. So make sure you take a dip at Grand Anse Beach. So just a little bit about Dr. Brigitte. She's a senior researcher at the Nacional Autonomous University of Mexico, specializing in marine ecosystems and sargassum research. Her work focuses on understanding the impact of sargassum on coastal environments and exploring sustainable management and valorization strategies. And Mr. Ignacio is the CEO of The Seas We Love, an initiative aimed at mitigating the impacts of sargassum along the Caribbean coast through innovative containment and valorization strategies. He focuses on transforming the environmental challenge into industrial opportunities in areas such as energy and agriculture, while advocating for sustainable policies and international collaboration to address this pressing issue we call sargassum. Our online panelists, we have Dr. Pierre Fayet. He's a professor of economics and director of the Center of Blue Governance at the University of Portsmouth, holding the UNESCO in ocean governance. With over 25 years of experience, he has led multidisciplinary research projects and developed blue economy strategies for various international organizations and countries, advancing sustainable development in coastal regions. And then we have Dr. Ulysses Haza, the coordinator of the doctoral program in environmental sciences at INTEC in the Dominican Republic, specializing in sargassum management and valorization. With 37 years of experience, he has authored over 221 scientific articles and leads research on developing liquid biofertilizers and activated carbon. So we have a well-versed and educated panel here this afternoon, and we want to hear from them. My first question is, in your view, what has been the most significant breakthrough in treating sargassum as an economic resource over the past year?
I would like to say last year's, because last year is a too short time. I think there are basically three, I think, which are pretty much working now. I think one is biostimulant as a sort of supplementary plant, which I think people are already commercializing it. It's still difficult to find a market for it, but I think the commercialization, etc., the process is on its way. I think the other, achievement since sargassum started to arrive, which is more than 10 years ago, I think is that barriers or booms are now effective, and they're becoming more cost effective still. And that's just for inshore and retention of sargassum. Because when sargassum already reaches the beach, the damage is already done. So we need to retain it before that. Of course, the barriers, they can't apply it everywhere, etc. But I think they're getting there, and it's getting better. So I think that's something really lessons learned. And I think the third really advancement is the modeling, the prediction modeling have become really very good. We have not been able to link that into the collecting and the valorization yet. But the modeling and prediction, they are widely available. We more or less, I think, prediction where sargassum goes, I think it's becoming quite good. So we really need to learn how to use that.
Well, that's good that we can predict when it can come to our shores. One question that I think is common, and I had that question, well, I posed the question yesterday while we were preparing. What gives it that stench? And I know a lot of people, maybe the students, might have that question as well. And the spoken word artist this morning, he spoke about the scent reaching you before you see what the problem is. So what gives it that stench? So maybe you could explain that for our students in the audience.
It's hydrogen sulfide. So when sargassum is piled on the beach, bacteria come in and they start decomposing. They suck up all the oxygen available. You get anaerobic digestion. And anaerobic digestion releases methane, ammonia, and hydrogen sulfide. Ammonia and methane, they really don't travel very far and they stay low. So the one which really travels further, and we are very sensitive to that gas actually. We smell it very, very quickly. So that's the major gas which is liberated. And to people who have respiratory problems, etc., or people who are prolonged for a long time, it is damaging to the health. So we really need to consider that. But it's not sargassum itself which is doing this. It's the decomposing process of sargassum.
Decomposing. Okay, nice. Because for those of us living in Grenada on the eastern side, that's where most of the sargassum goes. And I know a lot of people do suffer with the respiratory issues. I know it will affect them. My question to you is, where do you anticipate the most impactful progress in sargassum utilization to emerge within the next year? You spoke about the gases, the ammonia. How can we harness that to do something good with it? So can you talk to us about that?
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a todos y a todas. Les pido una disculpa por anticipado porque mi dislexia me impide comprender bien otros idiomas, pero sí he aprendido a consumir el mío y por lo tanto les voy a suplir esa deficiencia con una buena exposición, esperando que todos ustedes lo entiendan. Desde The Seas We Love es una iniciativa iniciada y promovida por el sector hotelero para poder abordar la contención y recolección oceánica del sargazo, porque tenemos que ordenar los factores para que el resultado sea el apropiado. La mayoría de las iniciativas que ustedes van a ver alrededor del Caribe vienen vinculadas a la valorización del sargazo. Cuando el orden de los factores no es el apropiado, no es el correcto, nada bueno va a pasar, y estos 10 años nos están corroborando que no debemos de seguir haciendo como un paso fundamental. Para nosotros, en esta iniciativa de un sector que solo en el Caribe mexicano está gastándose más de 130 millones de dólares por temporada en recolectarlo una vez que llegó a la playa, nos está diciendo ya que tenemos que convertir un pasivo en un activo en dos variables. Nosotros hemos trabajado en sintetizar el problema para poder abordar la facilitación de la solución. Y el problema del sargazo tiene dos grandes bloques. El primero es que no llegue. Y para que no llegue, que es lo más fundamental, tenemos que trabajar en contenerlo y recolectarlo antes de que llegue a la costa. Y por lo tanto, tenemos que trabajar en abordar de una manera correcta esa recolección en alta mar. Es fundamental que seamos lógicos en cómo abordar una problemática del tamaño del problema que tenemos a día de hoy. En ese sentido, desde The Seas We Love lo que hemos hecho es trabajar en cómo recolectar en alta mar, y para eso hemos trabajado en un estudio de prefactibilidad que ya nos dice que económicamente hablando es mucho más rentable, además de lógico, y por lo tanto es viable económicamente hablando ir a por el recurso, una materia prima que debe de ser objeto de industrialización y por lo tanto generar un mercado de valor, y ese mercado de valor ponerlo a disposición de todas las industrias del sector energético, del sector agro, del sector construcción, del sector cosmético, para poder en este caso convertir un problema en una gran oportunidad. Ese sería el enfoque que se está trabajando y donde nos ponemos a disposición de todos ustedes. Gracias.
All right, thank you so much. I heard his responses. If you're looking for a translation device, you can check the side. So let me just tell you what, in a nutshell, what he said. So for 1 year, they're spending 130 million just to collect the sargassum. So economically, that is not viable. So we need to find a way to fix that problem and find a way to harness the raw material so that we can use it in industries, in the cosmetic industries, and so on, right? If my tech people could assist with the distribution of the translation device, that would help a lot. So thank you for your response. We move to Dr. Faye online. Your question is, how have recent technological advancements and research breakthroughs influence sargassum valorization efforts, and which innovations are making the biggest impact?
Thank you. Yeah, I will try to reply to the questions. I think at the moment there are not so much research breakthrough or even business breakthrough things in the way that all the innovations are at the pilot stage. So when we did the study for the European delegation in Barbados on the Sargassum value chain, we were quite surprised to see that everybody is at very, very early stage, and all the pilot initiatives, both public and private, but mainly private, are benefiting at the moment from subsidies from the government mainly, or they're getting the sargassum as raw material free, so I heard, the intervention before that is that we need to put a price on the sargassum raw material, but at the moment there is no price because it's fully subsidized by the government. So up to now, there's not so many things. There are many initiatives, not so much organized, but the key issue is about the containment and the collection at sea. So I hear the figures about the 130 million, but if all the government have been moving a bit more forward for organizing themselves for the collection at sea, we will have reduced this amount of 130 million of collection on the shore, and maybe have been able to deploy something at sea. So it's really about a question now about anticipating the future and developing some innovative solution for collection at sea before even thinking about developing any value chain. So that's the key things I want to highlight for the moment.
Thank you so much. So anticipating the future and working on the containment and collection of the sargassum is important. So my next question to a panelist or another, Dr. Ulysses, he's also online. Your question, Doc, is which innovative solutions do you think are best suited to overcome the current challenges of sargassum valorization? Dr. Ulysses.
Pardon, could you repeat, please? I couldn't. You listen to me, please?
Yeah,
yes,
we do.
We can hear you.
Okay, please could you repeat the question because I
repeat
have
the
some
question.
problem with
No
connection.
problem.
Yes.
All right, so which innovative solutions do you think are best suited to overcome the current challenges in sargassum valorization?
Okay. So, first we have to say that I want to give my opinion, but taking into account the experience we have in the Dominican Republic. So first, we consider that the energy production and bio-based materials are anticipated to make the most impactful progress in sargassum utilization within the next years. Specifically, the bioenergy initiative, ongoing research into converting sargassum into biofuels, like biocompressed natural gas. Some recent experiments were published by by our colleagues on Barbados, okay, that represents a promising avenue in this sense. Expanding also this to scalable energy production, particularly for electricity generation or transport. Of course, the use also of sargassum for obtaining biogas, and from biogas, of course, obtaining bioenergy. Another very important point is the obtention of biodegradable products and packaging. This is an area of progress lies in the development of biodegradable products derived from sargassum. As sustainability becomes a growing priority, sargassum-based alternative to plastic packaging could gain traction, specifically for tourist-dependent economies that are tackling plastic waste. As it was mentioned by Dr. Brigitta, of course, the work on agriculture and soil enhancement, mainly the use of biostimulant and liquid biofertilizer, is an option, of course, taking into account and considering the importance of eliminating heavy metals, because as we know, one of the concerns using sargassum is just the problem of high level mainly of arsenic, so we have to take this element in consideration when developing this kind of products. And finally, studies have begun on the idea of developing flexible biorefineries that will allow for the comprehensive use of sargassum and other biomass, such as agricultural residues, to produce high value-added products and to valorize biomass fiber under the concept of a circular economy. In this regard, a project has been launched in the Dominican Republic, funded by the French government, with the participation of researchers from Guadeloupe, Martinique, France, and of course Dominican Republic. And we hope that other researchers from the region and the European Union will join us with this project, mainly to promote this idea of having flexible refineries that will allow just to valorize sargassum together with another biomass, mainly agricultural residues.
Thank you, Dr. Ulysses. Thank you. I have a question as it relates to private sector involvement. We heard this morning that there is opportunity for private sector to get involved. So the question I have for you is, sorry, my technology is not working with me. How can the private sector get involved in the sargassum, opportunity for sargassum usage and so on? How can the private sector get involved? So we could start with Dr. Brigitta.
I think in the beginning, when the sargassum bloom started, I think a lot of private sectors, they really saw gold, saw the golden sea, saw gold, an opportunity to invest, and they were very interested. But I think then they really started to realize that it was not that simple. And I really saw all big investors just slowly backing off and losing interest. And I think this momentum has been lost. And we really need to try to regain it, of course. And it's not, as I say, we really need to build on our successes. And yes, we need to innovate further. And I think one important thing to take into account is, I think there's no single solution for everywhere. For example, the Caribbean is very diverse, and the people in the Caribbean have very different demands. The demands in Grenada are really very different from the ones in Mexico, for example. I think here, for example, converting sargassum using a bulk application, because we need to process a lot. For example, building material would be great, because building material is scarce here. Energy is good, because energy is scarce here. But for example, in Mexico, that wouldn't be economically viable. Neither of them. So in Mexico, for example, you could go for a biorefinery, because it's more an intellectual hub. There are a lot of connectivity, etc. So you get higher value products. So there's no single solution for all private investors, and there's no really one golden solution either. It needs to be tailor-made towards to the conditions and the necessities of each local communities. And I think we have to try to understand that and build on to that.
Definitely. And would you like to chime in, Doc?
Sí, si me permiten, voy a poner el ejemplo de México. Creo que México ha sabido entender qué no para buscar el cómo sí. Y en este caso creemos que la iniciativa privada tiene que sumarse en una alianza con el gobierno. El gobierno de México ya ha visualizado cómo sumarse o cómo darnos cabida al sector privado para buscar juntos una solución. Y en este caso, la Secretaría de Agricultura del Gobierno de México, a través de su Instituto Mexicano de Investigación en Pesca y Acuacultura Sustentable, que es el órgano técnico encargado del análisis y del estudio de lo que ocurre en el sargazo en alta mar, porque sabemos mucho del sargazo cuando ya nos pegó, pero sabemos muy poco del sargazo cuando está en el mar. Necesitamos entender los patrones de comportamiento, cómo y de qué manera el sargazo vive para poder establecer los mejores criterios de su recolección en alta mar. El IMIPAS es el órgano técnico que va a ayudarnos a través de un proyecto regional que le animo a todos los países del Caribe a que se sumen en ese estudio de evaluación para poder juntos entender cómo abordar el sargazo para que no llegue, para inhibir la llegada del sargazo, que es el punto principal de la posterior industrialización en la que todos estamos implicados. Igualmente, la Secretaría de Medio Ambiente ya ha establecido una iniciativa con este nuevo gobierno para poder, y ya lo ha publicado, para generar un polígono industrial de economía circular para el tratamiento y el procesamiento del sargazo. Es decir, primer problema, ¿cómo lo recolectamos de la manera correcta? Segundo problema, ¿qué hacemos con todo lo recolectado? Y por lo tanto, esos dos grandes pasos son los que en la asociación público-privada, en el entendimiento entre lo público y lo privado, donde lo privado, el sector hotelero, está en disposición, porque es uno de los sectores más impactados, en convertir un gasto de operación irrecuperable en una inversión redituable, en un modelo de economía circular basada en que el sargazo no es un residuo, sino es un recurso, es una materia prima.
Thank you. I just want to add, we just had a hurricane in July 1st, and we have now a problem of getting rid of waste on Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So the challenge of getting rid of the sargassum, I could very well understand that. Getting rid of them, and not just getting rid of it, but how do we use it to our benefit? And of course, the public-private collaboration is a big part of it, and I think we can, just really use that to our advantage with the private sector. And you mentioned Ministry of Agriculture, and I know there are some representatives here from the Ministry of Agriculture, so I really hope that this conference speaks to you, and you can also find ways to use the sargassum sargassum to our benefit. All right, our online panelists, do you want to add to this conversation? Dr. Faye? No?
No.
Dr. Ulysses?
Yeah, maybe one word on this. I think because I heard quite a lot the word solutions. There is no solution as such. It's a question of implementing a process of, and you were just talking about the private-public partnership. It's really about implementing a process first to be able to collect before you reach the shores, and secondly to really see how the states can contribute to the development of the sargassum industry by giving a very clear signal about what he wants to do. We just heard about Mexico, but what he wants to do, what he can do, and I think collectively at the level of the Caribbean, there's quite a lot to do, and there's a lot of possibilities about moving towards something, a collaborative work for the collections, and then looking for the development of the different value chains. But until the collection part is not clear and is not done, and there is no price on the ton of the sargassum, you will just play around. You will develop pilot projects. Everybody is looking for pilot project. Everybody is funding pilot project, but it will never reach the commercial stages. So it is really concerned about having the right signal from the government and for the regional organizations.
Thank you. I think the key here is to be creative and innovative. If you know what you want to do with the Sargassum, maybe we don't want it, we still want it to get to our shows if we have a plan for it. All right, so at this time I'd like to take 2 questions from the audience. 2 questions. We're running out of time, so if you have questions, just 2 questions. All right, there's 1 question here, so if you can step up and we will take that question. And our tech team will give you a mic.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm representing the European Business Chamber in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, so based on the panel, I understand that it's important for sargassum to be collected before it arrives. And there's the possibility of organizing the collection. My question is the technology at the stage where it is possible for, let's say, a few major biotechs to produce the raw material for several uses? So for example, the same biotech company, can they produce for biogas, a raw material that could be used for the biogas industry, or raw material that could be used for the cosmetic industry, or raw material that could be used for fertilizers, etc.? Is that possible, that you have few biotechs transforming, so you have organized collection and then organized biotechnology for transformation?
Go ahead.
Sí, nosotros desde The Seas We Love lo que hemos hecho ya es un estudio de prefactibilidad de todo el ciclo de vida del sargazo, desde la recolección en alta mar, la logística de transferencia, cómo lo vamos a transportar, cómo lo vamos a copiar, de qué manera lo vamos a tratar y cómo lo vamos a valorizar para su comercialización. En este caso, nuestro estudio está en el vector energético, pero exactamente igual puede estar en cualquier otro vector productivo, siempre partiendo de que lo más importante es el mercado de valor del sargazo. El sargazo tiene, como cualquier otro producto, tiene que tener un mercado regulado con un valor para que las distintas industrias, como usted ha solicitado, tengan la capacidad de tener la materia prima suficiente para escalarlo e industrializarlo, que es el gran problema de cualquier industria incipiente. Cómo organizar lo que es hoy residuo todavía, con un valor cuasi cero, a una materia prima que tenga un valor y que pueda ser objeto de valorización. En este caso, el vector energético, nosotros hemos trabajado en generar biometano para sustituir el gas natural y en combustible sostenible de aviación. ¿Por qué? Porque son mercados que tienen una alta demanda de esa bioenergía y por lo tanto tenemos que generar la capacidad de darles esa respuesta. Ya existe, las empresas, lo que estamos proponiendo es organizar ese mercado de valor de sargazo y que la financiación del Banco Europeo de Inversión a través de Global Gateway, ojalá que sí, que Félix nos apoye en cómo sí, pero no solo el Banco Europeo, sino la banca de desarrollo, la banca comercial, los fondos de inversión climático. Ya estamos en un estadio donde tenemos que dejar de hablar de qué se puede hacer y empezar a hablar de qué vamos a hacer y cómo vamos a materializar. ¿Qué sigue? Es lo que ya es importante. No podemos tardar 10 años más en seguir hablando de cuáles son las composiciones del sargazo y de qué manera nos pega cuando llegó. Por lo tanto, las industrias son esenciales y debemos de generar los hubs tecnológicos para poder responder a la demanda de industrialización que ya es objeto hoy de materialización.
Nice. So transforming the sargassum to something that has great value. I think that's the key takeaway here. And of course, developing technology in order to do so. Thank you. Anybody else want to respond to the question? Dr. Brigitte?
Well, yes, I think transformation is very difficult. I think, for example, one potential really application I think is really animals and food for animals. And the arsenic has been a problem with that. We found a very cheap way to remove it, actually. So very cheap, very viable way to remove it. It's still experimental. But if you can do that and then produce it in a variable animal fodder, I think it's very good. And actually, it's very good to feed it to chicken. The eggs have less cholesterol. The shrimp have less cholesterol. So I think that's one of the applications, I think, which is worthwhile following on. I think another suggestion I would really like to say, we've been talking about high sea collection. There's the ecologist speaking here. I think the high sea collection, I think it's worth trying out and see if it's feasible or not. I think we don't know yet. The inshore collection, the barriers are doing well. High sea, it will be really nice to have a good trial, but still only dedicated to sargassum, which is about to arrive to the shore. And that's what I say, that's why this prediction and these modeling tools are becoming really incredibly important. Because they can say with what probability sargassum is arriving to shore. You can have an international agreement on that. Well, 60%, okay, then it's going to arrive. Everything which will remain in the sea is actually, it should be protected, in my opinion. I'm an ecologist. And I think it should be protected also because it sucks up carbon. It sucks up nutrients. It's a bioremediator, natural one. And I think it should be protected just for those reasons, and it should be left there. And we only should collect the sargassum, and I hope really the valorization industry gets started. Sargassum is going to get a prize, but then we already need to have an international agreement in place which says which sargassum can be harvested and which sargassum should be protected. And the protection, you can even pay for it by carbon credits or something like that. Because you can calculate, if you have so many area of sargassum in your territory, it sucks to so much carbon, and then it can be even viable, and it can be used as carbon credits. So that's really, but I say, that's the ecology speaking, but in the sea, it's doing a tremendous good, and playing a very good role. I think, not only for that, also as a biodiverse system. So leave it there, protect it, and only collect our sargassum, which is destined to arrive to the shore.
So protect it. And Mr. Munez, you did say we can't wait another 8 years to figure this out. It has to happen like now.
Yeah. And I can have a note on that. I think that's something we can all have in common, actually. So I think if we can get, because it's so very difficult to get all the Caribbean countries together to talk, because everybody has their own legislation, own conditions, etc., etc. But I think if there could be an international agreement on that, at least you get everybody together on a day-to-day basis, which is something lacking. This conference is nice, and they come again in a couple of years, and then everybody goes to their own country, do their own thing. But if we get a day-to-day communication, even if it's something protection, which feels nice anyway, and then if you can get together and everybody is talking the same language, then all the other communications can also get in place, and then we can learn from each other, because we are not building on each other's experience. Everybody is reinventing the wheel in their own territory again and again and again. And I think that's something which should be avoided, and maybe we can get everybody talk together, and maybe get an agreement. Okay, sargassum, which is with a certain possibility, stays in the high seas with this day, okay, let's have an agreement on that. And that's, everybody must be involved, otherwise you don't get it done.
I agree. If we have the same problem, we need to find ways to talk to each other. Let's find the solutions together. Excellent point. I see some headway on with our online panelists. If you want to chime in on this, you can. If not, we will move to our final question from the audience. And I do see a hand, and we're gonna from a student. And I think we definitely need to hear the young voices in the room. So if you wish to respond, you may do so at this time. If not, we'll take the student. On the floor. Dr. Pierre, you have a response.
Yeah, just, it's not a response. I think it's a complementary comment on the ICs issue. In the ICs, you can do more or less what you want to do because it's in the IC, so it's outside of the EZ. So I think the regulation should apply when the SARGASSUM are arriving first in the EZ, and secondly when they are reaching maybe 20 miles from the coast or something like this, or even in the 12 nautical miles. So I think the international regulation should apply more on the collection within the EZ than outside, but we can also make forbidden the collection outside of the EZ in the ICs. So that's a possibility.
Thank you, Dr. Faye, for your contribution. We'll take the question from our student in the audience.
My name is Chanel Simon, and I'm representing Central's Modern Secondary School. I'm thankful for this opportunity for being here. What specific opportunities are available for students across Grenada in the process of utilizing the sargassum seaweed? And how do we envision this rolling out into schools so we can do our part in sustainable use of this seaweed? Thank you.
All right, Ms. Simon, I will like to ask you to repeat your question for our panelists online and some of us on.
What specific opportunities are available for students across Grenada in the process of utilizing the sargassum seaweed, and how do we envision this rolling out into schools so we can do our part in sustainable use of this seaweed?
Excellent. So how can our youth play a part, pretty much, right? Responses?
Well, I think citizen science projects are really very good for that. Of course, it's on a scale. You don't deal with hundreds of thousands of tons of sargassum, but I think they really help, and everything helps, and I think we need a multi-scale solution anyway. So I think schools, for example, they go get involved in citizen science. So just regular monitoring on the beach. What's getting there, how much is getting there, and which morphotypes are getting there. Because the morphotypes, there are 3 morphotypes, Sargassum fluitans 3, Sargassum natans 1, Sargassum natans 8. They are saying something about origins, about roots. We don't precisely know what, but it may reveal something and get a question done and maybe where it's coming from and try to understand it better. And I think citizen science will be perfect for that. So just monitoring, which is great. And I think there are many small-scale projects which you get involved in. For example, compost. I think it's, they found that, for example, of course it's not getting very large scale, but still, if everybody used a little bit of sargassum, collect it on the beach, make compost out of it, I think the worms are really very good in it, in also getting rid of the arsenic, etc. So actually that compost can be used, and it can be done on a small scale, but everybody does it in their house on a small scale. It's very nice, and you got nice flowers and a better garden. I think those are the projects which can make a big difference.
Thank you. Brigitte?
Por nuestra parte, yo creo que los retos estudiantiles, nosotros hemos lanzado algunos retos a nivel de científicos e investigadores. Creo que, como muy bien decía la compañera, se pueden hacer retos vinculados a la concienciación de que el sargazo es una oportunidad desde la etapa más temprana, desde la etapa estudiantil, no un problema, y trabajar en algunos retos estudiantiles que ayuden a poder identificar y poder aprovechar esas múltiples fórmulas de valorización que el sargazo da como materia prima. Sería una opción posible.
Thank you. And online panelists, if you want to contribute, you can do so at this time.
Yes, for example, one very important role of students It's just the work that they can do with the communities for explaining what the sargassum is, how we can deal with sargassum. That's very important. And as Brigitte said, the help that we can receive from them for during monitoring processes, so that it demands that we have a good preparation and that we can, through the education, prepare not only our students, but all our teachers and in general our communities, and participate also with fishermen and their families, because sometimes we have some challenge regarding the problem of fishery due to the problem of sargassum. So there is a lot of things to do by students, and they are very, very important in this chain of contributions and collaboration in the fight against sargassum, and mainly, as Ignacio said, for understanding that sargassum is not a waste and only, it's the opportunity, it's the raw material, and a very important opportunity for sustainable development.
Thank you so much, Ulysses. And final thought from Dr. Pierre.
No, just to be brief, but in the Pacific, I think they have a very good system for involving the kids into the management of the shores and the sea. And so they develop some with at the community level, some very small, we can say, marine protected areas, so they can see, the benefits of protecting with having not fishing, no fishing, nothing like it. So maybe it's something that they can experiment with the sargassum, looking at the beach without the sargassum, what are the changes, so that will develop the curiosity of the students.
Thank you. And my comment to you, Ms. Simon, is to maybe this is an opportunity for our students to branch out into different fields. Maybe we have too many lawyers and doctors. Maybe we need some more scientists to help with finding solutions to the sargassum. So final question and final contributions from our panelists. Looking ahead 10 years, where do you see the sargassum valorization industry, and what are the key challenges it needs to overcome this along the way? So final thoughts, you can respond to this, or you can respond to what are strategic priorities at this point as it relates to the sargassum issue that we're having.
I'll go for the strategic priorities. I think the strategic priority at this moment now is transport and storage. I think collection, one way or another, it's there, it needs to be perfect, but I think the main bottleneck now for continuing the valorization of sargassum is we need a good way of transport. It's so much water, 90% of it is water. And then you transport water anywhere. So the transport is very critical. And so there need to be found a way to make the transport really more efficient. And the other thing is, sargassum, it's not always there. The fluxes they vary seasonally, which is maybe okay-ish, but they also vary interannually. And how can you build an industry which really processes a lot of sargassum? Because that's what we need. We need an industry which processes hundreds of thousands of tons of sargassum. How can you get it when the supply is irregular? So storage, in that sense, is essential. So I think those are the main two bottlenecks we're facing now for the scaling up.
Awesome. So collection, continuing to do research, and storage.
I think at least logistically, yes. And then there are rules. There are no really good rules in process, and no private investor is getting in if the rules of the game are not really clarified, and they are not at this moment, and then they won't get in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mr. Munoz?
Sí, el reto más importante para los próximos 3 años, yo ya no dentro de 10, es demasiado tiempo, en los próximos 3 años está en 3 grandes premisas. La primera es la gobernanza, cómo vamos a regular lo que administrativa y legalmente tengamos que tener de las administraciones públicas para poder gestionar el sargazo como un recurso, formalmente hablando, porque si eso es parte principal, cómo las entidades de gobierno cada uno de los países, nosotros pensamos en local. Esa palabra es pensar en global como región, pero actuar desde lo local. No podemos trabajar en algo regional sin que cada país siga trabajando bajo su propia legislación en el desarrollo, bajo un efecto común, bajo una línea común como la que estamos estableciendo hoy. La segunda premisa es la investigación y tecnología. ¿Cómo vamos a aplicar la tecnología y la investigación para poder gestionar el cambio? Porque en el punto en el que estamos es que estamos gestionando un cambio de lo que hoy es un residuo a lo que mañana es un recurso. Y por lo tanto, la investigación y la tecnología van a ser consustancialmente, ya lo son hoy, lo están viendo ustedes en algunas de las empresas que nos acompañan y en otras muchas que no están hoy, desde la contención hasta la valorización ya hay tecnológicamente posibilidades. Y la tercera premisa es la inversión. Sin dinero nada pasa y por lo tanto tiene que ir acompañado de inversiones que faciliten la escala y la industrialización en un modelo Sargatec, es decir, una nueva industria basada en el sargazo que nos ponga en una posición internacionalmente relevante. Sobre esa premisa también me gustaría complementar lo que ha dicho mi compañera. Sí existe la posibilidad de anaquelizar, de peletizar, es decir, de que el periodo de cosecha no incida en el periodo de industria, porque una industria tiene que operar todo el año y en cambio el sargazo va a ser cosechado en una temporada que es la que nos va a decir, en este caso las entidades técnicas nos van a decir cómo, cuándo, de qué manera, con qué artes vamos a pescar para salvaguardar la biodiversidad marina, el refugio de ese bosque marino que es en el estado en el que vamos a ir, para después procesarlo y convertirlo en una oportunidad industrial. Esas premisas, y con eso acabaría agradeciéndoles mucho la intervención, gobernanza, investigación y tecnología e inversión son los tres retos para los 3 próximos años.
Excellent. So the three premise: governance, investment, and development. Investment of the products, and of course the application of the technology, research and technology, they go hand in hand. And final comments from our online panelists. Actually, we do have a question from the audience, so but we're going to take comments from our online panelists and then follow up with a question from the audience.
Okay, so in my case, I agree with the comments of Brigitta and Ignacio, but I want to focus to the problem of just preparing and conservation of sargassum, because we can use sargassum either fresh or dry. So the problem of preparing sargassum as raw material is very important. The problem of creating a sargassum market, and of course the development of sargassum industry, that's very important. Regarding sargassum industry, not only like industry in place industry, and also to develop mobile devices that can process sargassum in situ. In situ, that's is another technological challenge, and I insist in the convenience of developing flexible refineries that can at the same time process sargassum and other biomass in a way that we can have a production of valuable materials for several different biomass in our countries. For example, we have a huge agriculture production, so a valorization of sargassum together with another agriculture residues will be also an opportunity and a very important challenge for the future years.
Thank you for your contribution, and we're going to wrap up with Dr. Pierre.
Thank you. Yeah, just I heard about all the proposal, but I still thinking that the containment and the collection at sea and the processing at sea is quite important in a way that if you're able to produce powder, sargassum powder at sea, you reduce your logistics and your storage issues quite a lot, and you offer, a panel, a diversity for the use. Of course, it has to be in link with other products, and I think we have the sugar cane, the byproduct of the sugar cane that can be used. So there's a lot of possibilities there, but so I think that's the first thing. The second one is about developing a cluster, and I saw that with one EU project in Africa on the aquaculture, is about linking all the people working both in the private and the public institutions, working around the Sargassum in order that they can communicate, they can exchange on experience. So that's the second point. The third one is we are quite in a paradoxical situation in the way that Sargassum is on one way quite a big pollution, okay, and we just saw the cost, and on the other side an opportunity. So we should have at the state level some mechanism for compensating the one who are losing from the Sargassum invasions or the Sargassum inshore, and all the damage they are creating. So that's also linked to the governance. There should be a mechanisms, and also an international mechanism to reduce the Sargassum emissions from the emission source. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Using Sargassum as opportunities, of course, on one hand, we might see it as pollution, but of course there is opportunity in there. And our final question, Senator, you may proceed with your final question, and any one of our panelists, you can proceed to respond.
Thank you very much. Speaking directly in terms of Grenada, and a challenge that we have in Grenada is the cost of animal feed. It is quite high when compared to Trinidad and other islands. We mentioned harvesting at sea is the preferred option. So to sell any product for profit, we must calculate and know the cost of that product. What is the cost, do we know, of harvesting Sargassum by sea per ton? And if we were to have that cost based on that raw material, it was also mentioned that animal feed can be realized by a simple process of removing a chemical. I think it was arsenic. What is the cost of removing this per ton? And perhaps the answers to these would give us a base cost for animal feed with which we could scale specific to Grenada. So if we're speaking about specifically drilling down on things that are beneficial to each island in order to make this a viable business, we need to answer these questions. And I was just wanting to know if you knew what it would cost per ton to harvest by sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for your question. Cost per ton.
Nosotros ya tenemos un estudio de prefactibilidad que nos dice cuál es el suelo del valor del sargazo como materia prima en el ámbito del escenario que hemos generado, y es $0,031 por kilo. Ese es el valor mínimo que nosotros ya hemos dado, y es 5 veces más barato recolectarlo en alta mar que hacerlo en la playa y en la línea de playa. Lo que ya nos está diciendo que para que sea factible su industrialización debe de destinarse en los recursos para la contención, porque el valor de la materia prima y la conservación de las propiedades de esa materia prima son absolutamente mejores si se pesca o se recolecta en alta mar. Y por lo tanto, partiendo de la cifra inicial que ya tenemos, en este caso nos va a dar, lo voy a decir en pesos, son 610 pesos, más o menos unos 20 y tantos dólares la tonelada. Es el valor estimado sobre el cual vamos a trabajar como materia prima. Cada vector energético, cada vector productivo, perdón, va a tener un valor distinto, por eso es un mercado de valores dinámico, porque va a trascender distintas circunstancias propias de cada vector que nos va a dar la respuesta al valor de mercado que tenemos que clasificar, con el que tenemos que clasificar el sargazo. En el vector energético, que es el primero que hemos trabajado, ya tenemos un suelo de valor como materia prima que nos dice que es rentable y que es posible. Tendríamos que gestionar para otros vectores, como el que usted ha solicitado, y establecer el criterio de valor del sargazo para que sea rentable para las industrias que van a invertir en las plantas necesarias para convertir el sargazo en ese producto final.
So I'm not sure if you got that. Depending on the industry, you get more for money. Yeah. So energy, we might want to consider using it for energy. Yes. Would you agree? As opposed to agriculture.
As I said, there's no solution which fits all. I think that's what we really should go for. I think it really depends on the local demand and on the local conditions and what's available. So I think we really can't say, okay, you should go for energy, you should go for building material, you should go for that. I think there are some common principles, of course. There are some common sense and etc. in managing sargassum. But in the end, what you decide to use sargassum for and what's best, I think it depends on the local context. So I think we can't really say you should go for energy, you should go for building material, for animal feed, for agriculture, or anything. I think it really depends on the local context.
Okay, thank you so much, Brigitte, and thank you to all our panelists. I want to say special thanks. A panelist joining us online, Dr. Pierre Fayet, Professor of Economics and Director of the Center of Blue Governance at the University of Portsmouth. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you for joining us, Doc. And Dr. Ulysses Haza, the coordinator of the doctoral program in environmental sciences. Thank you also for joining us and being a part of the panel discussion this morning. Mr. Ignacio Munoz, thank you so much. Dr. Van Tuxenbroek, we thank you so much for joining us this morning. We take now a lunch break and a water break. And we're going to make some announcements before we break for lunch. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon. And guess what? We're almost at lunch. I'm the only things. Woo! Good afternoon, everybody. Again, now you can really hear me. As you may have noticed, we're a little bit behind. But we want you to eat and refuel to come back to the next panel. So I'm going to read very quickly what's going to happen. You will all walk very briskly down over to the restaurant to work up the appetite to have lunch at the restaurant. Lunch will finish promptly at 2, where you get to burn the calories back off walking back here. That's when we'll have the Unlocking the Potential, Overcoming Barriers panel. I feel a little short.